Hey everyone, welcome to this explainer. Today, we're cracking the code on a pretty wild reality about personal finance. Your financial success is actually way more about how you behave than what you know. We're pulling from Morgan Housel's incredibly eye-opening work, The Psychology of Money, and we're going to look at personal finance entirely through the lens of human behavior.
It's a glaring paradox, right? Have you ever wondered why some people with massive salaries and top-tier degrees end up living paycheck to paycheck, while someone with a totally average income quietly becomes a millionaire over the long haul? We usually just assume that knowing complex market mechanics or having insider information is the golden ticket, but the truth is actually entirely different.
Okay, let's dive into this. Doing well with money, it honestly has very little to do with how smart you are and a whole lot to do with how you behave. Even an absolute genius who lacks control over their emotions is going to face financial disaster. On the flip side, ordinary people with zero formal financial education can build incredible wealth if they just practice a handful of behavioral skills, stuff like discipline, patience, and keeping the right mindset.
Here's our super quick roadmap for today's explainer. We'll cover your worldview, luck, risk and time, getting versus staying wealthy, hidden wealth, the emotional price of investing, and finally, the ultimate money strategy. Let's get into it.
Starting off with Section 1, the psychology of money in your personal worldview.
Look, every single one of us has a totally unique view of how the world works. Your personal experience with money makes up maybe 0.0000001% of what's actually happened in the world, right? Yet it dictates like 80% of how you think the economy works. Think about this staggering number, $400. That is the average amount low-income households in the U.S. spend on lottery tickets every single year. To someone on a higher income bracket, that probably sounds completely irrational. But here's the thing we have to realize. No one is crazy. People justify it because they see it as buying a sliver of hope and a dream that their current circumstances just don't allow for. Unless you put yourself in their exact shoes, shaped by their exact generation, background, and economy, it's really hard to grasp why they make the choices they do. What seems totally crazy to one person makes perfect sense to another.
Moving on to Section 2, luck, risk, and time, the uncontrollables.
We all love to think that our own grit and grind dictate our outcomes, but luck and risk are these massive, invisible forces pulling the strings. Take Bill Gates, for example. The guy experienced a literal 1 in a million stroke of luck. Back in 1968, he happened to attend Lakeside, which was one of the incredibly rare high schools in the entire world that actually had a computer. He had two brilliant friends who shared his obsession, Paul Allen and Kent Evans. All three were absolutely bound for massive success. But while Gates caught that crazy wave of luck, his friend Kent experienced a 1 in a million tragic risk, losing his life in a climbing accident before they even graduated. Both luck and risk just prove that the world is way too complex to allow 100% of your actions to dictate 100% of your outcomes.
And because of those uncontrollables, there's an absolutely crucial financial skill we've all got to learn. Stop moving the goalposts. There's this great story about the authors Kurt Vonnegut and Joseph Heller at a party hosted by a billionaire. Vonnegut points out that their billionaire host made more money in a single day than Heller had earned from his massively popular novel over its entire lifetime. Heller just smiles and replies, "Yes, but I have something he will never have. Enough." Social comparison is basically a ladder with no top. The hardest financial skill is realizing when you finally have enough and refusing to risk what you already have and need for what you don't have and honestly don't need.
And is perfectly tees up the other uncontrollable force, which is time. Think about Warren Buffett. His immense fortune isn't just because he's a wizard at investing. It's because he has been a consistent investor since he was literally a child. Investing is his skill, sure, but time is his real secret sauce. Good investing isn't always about chasing the highest, flashiest returns. It's about earning pretty good returns that you can just stick with for a phenomenally long period of time, because that is where compounding performs its absolute magic.
Which brings us to Section 3, getting versus staying wealthy, a tale of two mindsets.
We tend to lump these together, right? But getting money and keeping money demand completely opposite psychological traits. Getting wealthy, that takes risk, relentless optimism, putting yourself out there, and going all in. But staying wealthy, totally different ballgame. It requires the exact opposite. You need humility, frugality, and honestly, a healthy dose of paranoia that everything you've made could just vanish. Like the venture capitalist Michael Moritz points out, we can never, ever assume that yesterday's success automatically translates into tomorrow's. Pure survival requires you to flip the script on your mindset.
And a huge piece of that survival mindset is grasping the tails you win concept. Just look at this breakdown of venture capital returns. A tiny fraction of events drives almost all the returns. It's the same in art collecting. Heinz Berggruen built this legendary collection of Picassos and Matisses. Was he clairvoyant? Nope. He just bought a massive amount of art. Most of it was meh, some was flat out bad, but a few pieces turned out to be extraordinary masterpieces. In finance, in business, in life, you have to accept that a lot of things are going to fail or break. It's totally normal. You just need to ensure you survive long enough to catch that tiny 2% of events, those tail events, that deliver the massive, life-changing returns.
All right, Section 4. True wealth is hidden. Redefining success.
We seriously need to rewire what financial success actually looks like versus what society tells us it looks like. People completely mix up being rich with being wealthy. When someone says, I want to be a millionaire, what they usually mean is, I want to spend $1 million. But actually spending $1 million is literally the exact opposite of being a millionaire. Rich is loud. It's the huge house, the fancy car, the Instagram flex. Wealth is completely hidden. It's the car you didn't buy, the diamonds you skipped. Wealth is unspent savings and investments sitting quietly in an account. So why does this distinction matter? Because wealth gives you options. It gives you ultimate control over your time, total flexibility, and the freedom to buy what you actually need exactly when you need it.
Next up, Section 5, the price of investing and the emotional traps waiting for us. Now, to actually build that hidden wealth, you've got to invest. And investing comes with some brutal psychological hurdles. The biggest one is how we view market dips. Most people see market volatility as a fine, like they're being penalized for messing up. But if you reframe that volatility as just a required fee for long-term market returns, total game changer. Volatility is just the price of admission to play the game. Once you expect the fee and accept it, the emotional roller coaster kind of just vanishes. You stop panicking, and you actually stay the course.
Then there's the incredibly sneaky trap of pessimism. If someone tells you the sky is falling or your money is doomed, you drop everything and listen, right? As Daniel Kahneman points out, this is literally evolutionary. Organisms that treat threats as super urgent are just more likely to survive. So pessimism always sounds intellectually smarter. But look at economic history. Humanity is wildly, infinitely innovative. Setbacks happen overnight and grab all the flashy headlines. But true progress, it happens slowly through compounding. Don't let the loud, scary voice of pessimism pull you away from the quiet, powerful reality of long-term optimism.
Finally, Section 6, the ultimate money strategy, room for error.
So, how do we actually pull all these behavioral insights together into a bulletproof financial life? The absolute most critical thing is eliminating single points of failure. The most important part of any plan is planning for when your plan inevitably goes off the rails. You desperately need room for error. If you rely on just one single income stream and have zero savings, that is a massive single point of failure. By building in a margin of safety, you become financially unbreakable. You survive the brutal market dips, and you stay in the game long enough for that sweet compounding to do all the heavy lifting for you. Let's look at how Morgan Housel, the author of our source material, actually plays the game himself. His personal playbook is surprisingly simple. The main goal, pure independence. He carries zero debt. He even paid off his mortgage early because the psychological peace of mind is way more valuable to him than squeezing out every last mathematical drop of return. He keeps a solid 20% of his assets in cash as a huge safety net, so he never, ever has to sell his investments in a panic during an emergency. And he completely avoids stock picking, just putting everything into low-cost index funds. He's not trying to be perfectly coldly rational. He's just aiming to be consistently reasonable. Which leaves us with this final thought to really chew on. As you evaluate your own behavior and the financial choices you make moving forward, ask yourself this. Are you just chasing the visible, fleeting status of being rich, or are you doing the quiet, disciplined, behavioral work to build true, lasting wealth? Ultimately, the choice is entirely up to how you behave. Thanks so much for hanging out with me for this explainer. I really hope it gives you a fresh perspective on your financial journey.